So let me ask you, are your twins waking up multiple times a night? Are they on completely different schedules? Or maybe one day they're napping at these times, the next day they're doing these types of naps. Maybe they're doing 4 naps one day, 3 naps another day. Maybe one twin wakes up the second the other twin is crying, or maybe they're fighting sleep even though you can tell that they're exhausted. Maybe you're co sleeping and wondering if there's some magical hack that's going to let you keep doing what you're doing and get better sleep. So, if you answered yes to any of those, then this episode is for you. Hey, I'm Laura Van Luven. Welcome back to Twin Sleep Talk, where we share twin parenting wisdom from someone who's been there. For the next 6 weeks, we're going to be doing a deep dive series into the top 5 twin sleep mistakes you don't even know you're making. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the description below to download your free copy of this guide. But we're going to be going through it together, a little more deep dive, but go ahead and download that right now so you can get started. Before we jump into the mistakes, what I want to do is something that's really important for this first episode, and that is to lay out what I mean when I say the word mistakes. What I just want to make clear first is the routines that saved you when your babies were really little, like when they were newborns. Those might be the exact things keeping your babies awake now. Now, I know that sounds a little bit intense, but just stick with me. And I think this is going to completely change how you think about doing sleep and routines for your twins. So, I work with families of twins from ages birth until 36 months. But this series, we're going to focus on the 4 to 18 month range. Now, what I've learned is that most of you, again, you're not necessarily making mistakes, but you're using strategies that worked beautifully at your twins' early stages of development. But now those strategies are causing the exact problems that you're trying to solve. So the crazy part is a lot of families I meet through the Twin Sleep Academy or through my one-to-one services, they don't even know that they're doing this. So before we get into it, please be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment or a review, and of course, share with a friend. Now, here's the thing about being a parent of newborn twins. You are in survival mode. No matter which way you cut it, the first 3 months, especially the first 2 months with twins, is pure survival. And you're going to do whatever it takes to keep yourself and everyone else alive and like as sane as possible. And a lot of the strategies that you adapted during that time are brilliant. They're perfect for that stage. Feeding to sleep, contact naps, rocking them to sleep, following their cues and letting them sort of set the schedule for the day. That works really, really well in the newborn phase. They save your sanity. They make sure your twins are growing. And it is exactly what you need to do. But what happens is your twins grow and their needs change. Their sleep patterns get more mature. They become more aware of the world. So, what worked at 2 months isn't going to work the same at 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. And a lot of parents don't realize that the very thing that kept them sane and saved whatever little sleep was possible is now the thing that's keeping them from sleeping well. Now, I'm going to give you an example from my own experience with my twins. Now, when they were newborns, I had a 2-year-old as well. So I had this strategy that when one woke up, I would immediately rush in and feed that twin because I didn't want him to wake up his twin brother or the older, 2-year-old, my 2-year-old daughter. That worked really well for me for like 4 months because I knew that if I fed that one right away, it would probably prevent the other one from waking up and he might sleep a little longer, or I would feed him next one at a time and I would keep my 2-year-old from waking up because for a long time we were all in a small space and sharing a room. One baby would cry, I would rush in, jump on it fast, feed him right away, and then the second one might stay asleep. Now, here's the thing, it worked, so I kept doing it. It was working for a while. The strategy was it was perfect. It helped me with managing 2 babies at once because, I actually had a really hard time feeding them at the same time. I was trying to nurse them. It was a whole thing. So I was up pretty much every 2 to 4 hours around the clock. And of course, that wasn't great, but I felt like it was keeping the chaos at bay. But then my twins got older and I realized that what was happening was they were starting to wake up more frequently than they even were at like 3 months. I was feeding them more frequently, even though they were cleared by the pediatrician to go all night without a feeding. And I could actually tell that they weren't totally hungry. More on that later. So they weren't actually sleeping better. In fact, they were sleeping worse. So I made a change. I started waiting when they woke up. Now, it sounded counterintuitive to me and it sounded very counterintuitive to my husband. He was like, "What are you doing waiting? Because one of them is going to wake the other one and wake the 2 year old. And now we're going to have this whole like chaotic situation at 2 a.m." But I realized after a little while of doing this that my twins and my 2 year old could actually sleep through some crying of their sibling. They could learn to fall back asleep on their own without being fed or rocked. Once I stopped jumping in immediately to feed them, everything shifted for the better. Their sleep improved. They started sleeping longer stretches. They became more independent sleepers. And I started having some predictable alone time during the day. The routine that was so important for both sleep and growth in the newborn phase was actually the thing that was keeping them from developing the skills that they needed to sleep well as they got older. Now, I see this all the time with my Twin Sleep Academy clients. Let me tell you about one mom I worked with recently. She had twins, and one of her babies really relied on pacifiers. And I love pacifiers. Huge fan. Four of my five kids used pacifiers, and I think they're a great tool for independent sleep. So it was working for this family. The pacifier soothed her. It helped her fall asleep. It was, just a game changer in the first year for twins. So this mom came to me after her twins were beyond their first birthday. They were like 1.5. One of the few things that I suggested for her was to consider getting rid of the pacifier. I was thinking that it was probably starting to interfere with sleep because the baby would fall asleep with the pacifier in, but then it would fall out and she would cry and wait for one of her parents to come in and put it back in for her. Now, at 1.5, a baby is able to take that pacifier and put it in themselves. So it was becoming kind of this endless cycle of parent going in, putting the pacifier in, pacifier coming out, and it was just like keeping everybody awake. So we talked about removing the pacifiers, and, she was actually pretty apprehensive about it because she had an older child and it was kind of a whole like big process for them with that child. So she was worried that this was going to be like a nightmare. And she thought that the baby was going to cry for days and she thought it was going to be this huge, like, traumatic thing. But nothing was working. So she decided she just needed to step in and do it. And what happened was once she made the change, her twin or her baby adjusted. And she came to me on one of our calls and she was like, "This was not nearly as difficult as I had imagined. In fact, once the pacifiers were gone, this baby started to sleep better. And this baby had been traditionally the more wakeful twin of the two babies. What happened was this baby learned to fall asleep without the pacifier. And so the mom realized that the thing she thought was helping was actually the thing keeping her from sleeping well. So, what I want you to understand during this series, before we get into all of the details, what I want you to understand is what I mean by mistakes. Now, this series is called The Top 5 Twin Sleep Mistakes That You Don't Even Know You're Making. And the free download, which you can find in the description below, has the same name. So, when you hear that title, you might think, "Oh no, I'm doing something wrong. I'm a bad parent. I've messed up my kids, or I've messed up sleep, and they're never going to sleep again." And I just want to be really clear, that is not what I'm saying. And you might even think like, "Well, I've been doing these things and they work fine. So why is Laura telling me this is a mistake?" No. My definition of a mistake is that it's only a mistake if it's causing a problem. Think about it this way. Some people can eat pretty much whatever they want, exercise very little, and they still stay thin. And other people, like me, we look at a cookie and gain 5 pounds. Now, what I'm trying to say is neither of these people are doing something wrong. They just have different bodies with different needs. Now, the same thing applies to your twins' sleep routines. Some babies can be rocked to sleep every single night and sleep beautifully. maybe this is your situation. One of your twins, you rock them to sleep and they sleep all night. But the other one, you're doing the same thing and they're responding very differently. Some babies co sleep and have an amazing experience. Everybody sleeps well and it's all working out great. And some babies can be fed to sleep in the middle of the night or before bedtime. And if that's working for your family, then it's not a mistake. You should just keep doing what you want to do. And again, babies really do need to have contact naps, be fed to sleep, rock to sleep, have their routine, go based off of their cues. But that's for the first few weeks. All of those things are so important for their bonding, their growth, their development, and yes, for their independent sleep skills later on. But, and this is important, if you are beyond the newborn phase, and rocking your babies to sleep every single night, and then they're waking up multiple times, it's a problem. Now, if you're co sleeping and one twin is waking up the other, and you're not getting any sleep, your partner's not getting any sleep, now it's a problem. If you're feeding them to sleep and they're dependent on that feeding to fall asleep and it's not working for your family anymore, then it's a problem. And here's the thing, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. I know you might be hoping for like one magical hack. You might be thinking, is there some trick that will let me keep rocking my twins to sleep and have them sleep through the night? Or can I keep co-sleeping and somehow get them to stop waking each other up? Or is there a way to keep feeding them to sleep and have them be independent sleepers? And the answer is no, there is no magical hack to this. If you want a different outcome with your twins' sleep, you have to be willing to change the routine that's causing the problem. And here's why. Your twins are growing and developing. Their needs are changing. What worked at 4 months is not going to work at 8, 12, and 18 months. When your twins are newborns, they needed you to do everything for them. They needed their head held up. They needed to be fed on demand. They needed to be soothed constantly. Those early routines, the ones that that are so natural and so necessary, they're exactly what your newborns needed. So if that's you, you did a great job. It's just that now, as your twins are growing and their brains are developing, they can become capable of more. And it's because you've laid such a great foundation where they feel safe and secure. They can learn to self soothe. They can learn to fall asleep without being rocked or fed. They can learn to sleep through some crying, and they can develop independence. I want to tell you one more story that illustrates this point. I had a friend years ago, and she adopted her daughter from China. And while they were in the process of going through all the paperwork and documentation and everything, this little girl was being cared for in a Chinese orphanage. And she was so well cared for. She had her nanny that was assigned just to her, and this sweet nanny would carry this baby around all day and just loved on her and gave her all the contact naps and just held her constantly. And when my friend finally, when they were able to go pick up their daughter from the orphanage and they brought her back to their hotel room and they sat her on the bed and she was about 8 or 9 months old, she just sort of fell over. And there was nothing wrong with her. What it was that she had just not been given the opportunity to build her core muscles and her balance and all those skills she needed to sit up on her own. What the nanny in the orphanage was doing was what she felt was the most loving for this precious little girl who wasn't able to go home to her parents yet. But the parents recognized once they were able to take her home that she needed more opportunities to practice sitting up. And of course, she eventually did. And now she's just like a wonderful young woman, very healthy and all of those things. But I say this to illustrate the point that if we don't give our babies the space to learn their developmental tasks, some just may not, or it may take them a lot longer than it needs to. So if you keep using the same routines that worked when they were newborns, you're actually preventing them from developing those skills. You're keeping them dependent on you in ways that no longer serve them or you. It's not that you made a mistake, it's that your twins have outgrown the routine and now it's time for you to change it. So, I want to be really clear about something. I am not here to tell you what to do with your twins. I am not here to judge the choices that you've made or that you're continuing to make. That's not what this is about. And I'm also not here to say that there's only one right way to do sleep. What I believe and what I tell all of my one on one clients, my Twin Sleep Academy students and parents, every single call we get on, pinned at the top on our private Facebook group, pinned at the top is this statement: you are the expert on your twins. And I fully believe that. You know them better than anyone. You know their temperament, you know their needs, you know their personality, you know your parenting style and your family situation. You know what works and what doesn't for your family. I'm just a lady on the internet. I'm giving you information. I'm sharing my experience and the experience I've seen of other twin families. And I'm here to just support you in figuring out what changes might help your twins sleep better. I'm here to help you understand that if something isn't working anymore, it's okay to try something different. And I want you to know that you're not a bad parent or a failure if you are needing to change something that you thought was going to work or that was working. What you're doing is allowing your babies to develop new skills. If you haven't already, check out the description and get my free download, The Top 5 Twin Sleep Mistakes You Don't Even Know You're Making. This is what we're going to be using for the next 6 weeks. And if this episode was helpful or made you think about sleep in a new way, please be sure to like, make a comment, leave a review, and of course, share this episode with a friend or friends who would benefit from it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time where we're going to talk about the midnight milk loop.